And now we have Honorable Erin Toole, MP of Durham and the Conservative Party of Canada leadership candidate. Welcome in Oxygen Talk Show.
It's good to be back.
Oh, thank you very much. This is the second time that we have an interview with you, Erin, and actually we are very excited to know more about your program and ideologies in leading the Conservative Party of Canada. So, before we start our questions, let me introduce you to my audience. Erin O'Toole was born in Montreal. He enrolled in the RCAF when he was 18. RCAF, by the way, it's a Royal Canadian Air Force. And when he was 18 and attended the Royal Military College, um, after 12 years of service, Aaron retired from the military and spent the next decade working in a private sector as a corporate lawyer. He has been elected three times in Durham, 2012, 2015, 2019. He served as a parliamentary secretary to the Minister of International Trade before becoming Minister of Veterans Affairs. For the last 2 years, Erin served as a shadow minister for foreign affairs. Erin is married, Rebecca, and they have two children, Molly and Jack. And now he is running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. Thank you for this heavy CV, Erin.
Thank you for reading it. The most important part is at the end, my wife and children.
Yes, and this is actually the core of the success of our country, the family, and I'm always putting focus on that. Actually, I will start my question to you, starting with the Conservative Party. In the federal election in 2019, there were a strong efforts from the Blues, but no luck to win. From your point of view, what are the pros and cons of these federal elections?
Well, listen, in the last election, Andrew Scheer did increase our vote count and did increase our seats in the House of Commons, but we lost, particularly in Southern Ontario in the Greater Toronto area. And when Andrew Scheer said he wasn't going to run again as leader, I stepped up because I'm ready. I have the experience and I've won three times in the Greater Toronto area where there's 60 seats and we need to win more of them. So I think in the coming election, Rami, the Canadians will be looking for which party can get Canada back on track in terms of working, in terms of our economy, and who will keep taxes low and life affordable for families. It will be us. It will not be the Liberals. They're already looking at raising taxes across the board. They're looking at taxing people's homes. They'll raise personal taxes. So the Trudeau Liberals can't be trusted with our economy. It's time for a principled conservative government again.
Oh, that's great. Okay. You raised a slogan in your campaign to make the Conservative Party true blue. Uh, how you will make this happen?
Well, I think the Conservatives win when we share our vision for the future of the country with more Canadians. We don't just win when people get sick of the scandals of the Liberals. Mr. Trudeau's in his third personal ethics scandal now with the We Charity, and we will hold him to account for that. But we also have to tell Canadians what we plan to do with the economy, how we're going to provide jobs for young people, how we're going to restore Canada's reputation on the world stage. These are principles, I think, that Conservatives have to share to win more voters in urban and suburban Canada. And so I'm talking a lot about economic growth. I'm talking a lot about job creation in the Western Canada, in the resource sector, in the forestry sector, in manufacturing in Ontario. I'm talking about human rights, respect, and fighting for religious freedom and other things around the world. I think that's how we're going to win true blue conservative ideals to show them how it's going to keep Canada strong, safe, and respected.
That's great. You mentioned before that you are going to walk on the parade. You are pro-choice, and do you think this will make the conservative more blue?
Well, listen, I respect free votes for all conservatives on matters of conscience. I think it's good if people bring their faith perspectives to public life. and their faith and cultural background. So I will respect people that want to go in the parade or not go in the parade. That's part of the choice people have. We're a free society. As leader, I'm going to show people that I will always stand up and defend people's rights, much like I did when I was in the military. The military stands up for the rights and institutions of Canada. And our party, the Conservative Party, also welcomes people who have traditional faith views, and they can vote that way. I think that's important for us to show. So I've been very clear in my public life. Sometimes I've voted with my social conservative colleagues on some issues. Some issues I haven't, but there's always been respect. That's what this party needs to be based on, is respect. And we unite together as a movement. And that's what I'm promising. You know, when Mr. McKay suggested that certain views were not welcome in the party and those people were albatrosses, that really divided people. I don't want to divide. I want to unite and make sure we win.
Okay, that's great. Let's move to another part, which is a hot part: Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. How do you evaluate Justin Trudeau's performance in COVID-19?
Well, the Liberals were very late with both the health response and the economic response. They closed the border to flights from China over 2 months after people said they should have closed the border. Conservatives, we were asking in late January, February to restrict flights and to restrict the border to keep coronavirus cases out of Canada. The Trudeau government didn't listen. In fact, even in early March, they were saying closing the border wouldn't help at all. And here we are months later with the US border still closed. So clearly the Trudeau government was wrong off the start. And then their economic response, Rami, they have allowed a lot of small businesses to suffer, family-owned businesses across the country, including in my riding in Durham, in the GTA. There's hundreds of businesses going under or considering bankruptcy because they didn't get any rent assistance. They didn't get any refund of tax dollars. They didn't get a loan assistance. So the government's approach for saving jobs and saving small business was very, very slow.
Yes.
The Conservatives, I've got some ideas to make sure that small business growth survives through this COVID time. So we tried to work together as much as we could, but with Parliament not sitting, I was very disappointed with just how slow the Trudeau approach was.
Yeah, actually, what you said is very true, and this reflects on the employment rate. We will ask this question later in the economy section. But for Justin Trudeau had three scandals, two of them before the federal elections, but the Conservative Party didn't succeed to win the majority of the Canadians' vote. If you will be the leader of the Conservative Party, how do you get the Canadians to vote for the Conservative Party with a majority of votes, with the third scandal or the third ethic investigations, which was about the We charity?
Well, we have to show them that the Prime Minister and the Liberal Party always put themselves and their insider friends before they put the well-being of Canadian families and seniors. And I'm not exaggerating that. Every scandal Justin Trudeau has been in, either his private holiday, where he took not just himself and some friends, he took the president of the Liberal Party on a trip that he should not have been taking from a very wealthy business person and faith leader. The second scandal, SNC-Lavalin, when a very large corporate interest that was very close to the Liberal Party asked them to change the law, he was pressuring his own attorney general and fired her for not doing what insider Liberal friends wanted. And now this We scandal, this is clearly Bill Morneau and Justin Trudeau helping their friends in the middle of a pandemic with no oversight. So this is about trust. And I think Canadians will see that an ethical leader, someone who's served the country, I've never taken from it. I've always served it in the military, in parliament, in charitable work. We will put Canadians first. We will put families and seniors first, not Liberal insiders, not Justin Trudeau and his family and his friends. I think people are sick of the double standard and the arrogance of the Liberals. But as I said, Rami, we also have to show our plans to get Canada back on track. So not just show that the Liberals are not ethical, but also show that we have ideas for a strong future.
Oh, that's great. Let's move to the immigration section. How do we evaluate the current immigration policy of the Liberals that brought up the crime rate and increased unemployment rates?
Well, we have to fix the immigration system that Justin Trudeau has allowed. Not just some of the rules to be broken, he's allowed public confidence in our system to really decline, and
That's true.
that's not good, because Canada needs immigration, but we need it to be done fairly, with compassion, and following rules. I know my community, which has a lot of new Canadians in it, those families follow the rules. And in some cases, they're waiting several years to sponsor a family member. So it's completely not fair to allow tens of thousands of people just walk over the border and break the law and jump ahead in the processing process. So I'm going to fix that, fix the illegal border crossings, primarily in Quebec, negotiate an update to the treaty we have with the United States. But we also have to probably move our immigration system around, allow more family reunification faster, because some of those family members can help with childcare. And we saw during COVID-19, a lot of people couldn't work because of school or daycare closures. If families have more options for family to watch the children, that helps mom or dad keep their job in difficult times. We may have to pivot some of the skilled immigration into new areas, because we may have high unemployment. So as I said, the skills and the family reunification, we probably need more family reunification for the next few years to help families through these difficult times. And then when economy recovers and employment comes back in a few years, we can then shift back to a mixture of skilled immigration versus family reunification.
How about the refugees? Would you change the plans of the existing Liberals government?
Absolutely. The biggest disappointment, I think, has been to see how Justin Trudeau has tried to obviously allow the illegal border crossings to happen, where people are claiming asylum when they're not really proper asylum claimants. We also are not providing refuge for some persecuted faith groups and culture groups around the world. That's what we should be providing refuge for. Persecuted Christians in some parts of the world. There are Hong Kong democracy activists. We may have to offer refuge to a few people that will be at risk from Beijing and the Communist Party of China, because they've tried to stand up for the democratic rights of Hong Kong. So we need private sponsorship refugees in normal numbers, where we can help them integrate, as opposed to what Trudeau did, was put up a huge number and then put them through the public system, where people were put in hotels. They didn't have groups of people to help them integrate into the community, into jobs. So they've actually set a number of families up for failure under Trudeau's approach. We will get back to basics and make sure it's a fair system that is based on private sponsorship.
Oh, that's great. Thousands of professional immigrants, especially from the Arab world, that this is the area which I come from, are finding difficulty to pass the equivalent test and exams in order to get their license. Mainly the physicians, the pharmacists, dentists. They believe that the government made that intentionally because there is no place for them in the market. Do you think that's true? And if it's true, how do you fix that?
This is something that has plagued Canada for several decades now, and it's something my friend Jason Kenney was starting to tackle as immigration minister, and I think we have to continue his great work, uh, because this is an issue, Rami, where the federal government runs the immigration system, but often it's the provinces that run the skills recognition and the professional colleges. So the doctor example, those are licensed provincially. So what we have to do is bring the provinces together and allow for better skills recognition, better credential verification, so that people, while they're applying to Canada, we can look at their credential recognition while they're waiting for the acceptance of their package. And I think that would be the better case. I know it's not going to work perfectly in all cases, but the very fact that we're short physicians in some parts of the country, and we have physicians coming who, because of some licensing rules, can't practice. Uh, that's just wrong for them, and the community's missing out on them. So it's something I'm going to put a lot of priority on fixing.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Let's move to the economy. Employment rates reach 13.7 in June. In some areas like Toronto, it exceeds 15%, and this exceeds the highest rate since 1982. It was 13.1. And actually, what's your plans for economy to get back again to boom?
Well, first off, we have to save small business. As I said, I have a number of pledges I'm making in my platform to save small business, to allow them the loans and some of the flexibility that Justin Trudeau didn't give to them. And why that's important is about 2/3 of Canadians work for or are partial owners in a small or medium-sized business.
That's true.
So employment depends on small businesses. One small business may only employ 4 people, but there are tens of thousands of these types of businesses. And if they fail, we will have high unemployment. So I'm going to save small business. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to reverse a lot of the ideological left policies of Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau was against the energy sector. He was against the forestry sector. We have no softwood lumber agreement. He suggested that Ontario had to move past manufacturing, and he got bad trade deals with the United States. We had tariffs on steel and aluminum hurting those industries. So I want to see Canada boom. And I'm very proud of our resource sectors from coast to coast. And a job is of value. If a mom or a dad in a family can work to provide for their children, sometimes for their elderly parents, there is nobility, there is value in that. And Justin Trudeau seems to pick what jobs are good, what jobs are bad. I want all Canadians to have the opportunity to provide for their family. And if they want to work, if they want to build this great country, they're welcome in the Conservative Party, regardless of how they voted in the past. We are the only party that wants to get people working from coast to coast to coast.
That's true. Going to the foreign policy, I will mention countries and a situation or a subject. Please, I need your comment on each of them. USA and trade.
This has been one of the biggest failures of the Trudeau government. They did not take the trade talks with the United States seriously. And our US relationship started eroding under Obama. So it was before Trump. Obama cut the Keystone XL pipeline. Obama and Trudeau banned exploration in our Arctic for resources. So we have to improve the US relationship. It's critical for trade. It's critical for security. And as someone who served in the military, in Canada's military alongside the US, I will make strong efforts to get that relationship back on track for the benefit of Canadian workers.
Turkey and its threat in the Middle East.
I'm very concerned with the Erdogan government. In fact, its continued clampdown on its citizens, on border states and groups near Turkey, and then of course recently the willingness to remove the designation of national heritage sites, a former church cathedral, and turning it into a mosque when it's a World Heritage Site of incredible value to Christians. I think that was just a sign of politics and negative politics, division, actually. And we shouldn't be seeing that from a NATO partner. I think NATO countries need to be stronger and more principled with respect to Turkey.
China versus local industries.
We need to bring a lot of key sectors back from China. And I want to promote, and I've been talking about this for some time, free trade amongst free countries. China and some other countries manipulate world trade. They don't follow the rules, and they try and abuse the rules for their own advantage. And it hurts workers in Canada, it hurts workers in the United States, Australia, elsewhere. So I think Canada has to bring back some strategic manufacturing to our own shores so that we have that domestic capacity. And we have to work with our democratic allies to perhaps start building self-sufficiency, energy security, food security, and perhaps tariffing goods from countries that are not democratic.
Yeah, how about Hawaii and the fifth generation? And this have been a lot of talk about Hawaii.
Yeah, I think we have to work with uh, the Five Eyes security partners to keep Huawei out of all of our critical infrastructure. Huawei is a state-owned enterprise from China, and anything that is critical for our infrastructure, like the 5G infrastructure that our entire economy will rely on in the next few decades, it can only be sourced from trusted sources, not from a corporation that is required to exert the will of the Chinese Communist state.
Yeah, I do think that the intelligence departments have a say because there was a lot of problems on these networks. Anyway, my question is, what's your opinion about political Islam? Let me clarify definition of political Islam: people who use the religion, Islam religion, to reach positions or to control politics, and it act as a damage for many. For all the places they have been there, especially in the Middle East and from my back country, Egypt, who consider it as terrorist groups.
Yeah, I have the same concerns you do. These theocracies that are run, they really suppress minority religions, minority culture groups. They suppress the rights of their citizens and are undemocratic. So we certainly want to call that out abroad and make sure there's a zero tolerance for that here in Canada. I like the fact that you can come from any background, religion, culture, ethnic group, but you're Canadian and you adhere to our freedom, our liberties, our rights, and our democracy. And I think some of the politicization of Islam we've seen in other parts of the world are certainly not welcome in our political system. And I think we've seen the liberals manipulate this issue with things like motion M103 and other things. I think that type of divisive approach should be called out.
Do you think political Islam exists in Canada?
I do not think so on a major level. I do think I've read, I've heard reports from people about individuals and people that are in some cases trying to organize out of a certain neighborhood or a mosque or something like that. I think it's very isolated. I think in the debates in the House of Commons, when this politicization has come up, as it did when the NDP politicized a petition, and then the Liberals politicized M103, I really think it backfired. I think Canadians do not want to see any of these sort of single issue groups try to dominate and sometimes try and bring disputes from elsewhere in the world to Canada. So I don't think there's anything that is widespread at all. And I do think we have intelligent and law enforcement agencies watching for the risk of some organizers trying to bring that here. I think we should be conscious. There are some cases, but I don't think it's widespread.
Actually, you mentioned it's not on the major level. However, some reports, especially some books like Qatar Papers, mention some Islamic charity organizations are existing and have finance from Gulf countries in which to change the political life of the Canadians. Have you heard about that, and to what extent is it true?
Yes, in fact, I've asked one of the Canadian charities about these international reports because I've said under the Harper government, we would sometimes partner with development groups of the Christian faith, of other faiths. And if there was ever any evidence that funds from Canada were being mingled with funds internationally that were supporting terror or divisive tactics, I would have a zero tolerance approach to that. Um, Canada does not want any of the charitable giving from our citizens at home to be going to further conflicts or certainly to further terrorist causes. I'd have a zero tolerance to wipe that out. There have been reports around the world, and that's what I've said to the Canadian arm of this charity is there will be a zero tolerance. And if there's any risk of international operations interfering with what you do here at home, it will not only hurt your reputation, you will never be able to partner with the federal government.
It's worthy to say that this Islamic political Islam also oppress the moderate Muslims, and they do not want them to have their rights because they have uncover their political agenda. So it's all of all as a Middle Easterns, it do not welcome any political Islam, Muslims, and any other religion for that. Let's go for another area, which is the ethnic media. Ethnic media played a vital role in the federal elections, the last federal elections, but cannot find from this current government the required support, especially financially. Do you think that ethnic media should have more support and bigger role in when you are the Conservative Party leader?
Well, I'm quite well known in this race. I'm the only candidate that's come out with a policy of cutting the CBC and cutting CBC English television and CBC digital and move to privatize it. And what I've said is the government should not be subsidizing one channel. They're like the CBC. There could be the ability for more government support through grants and through advertising for a whole range of media, including ethnic media, which I agree does do a great job informing Canadians, first, second generation Canadians, on issues at home, issues abroad. I'm very impressed with how much a lot of ethnic media outlets can do with very little budget. So what can the federal government do in terms of tax rules, in terms of approach? I've said I'm open to work with that because we've got to end the sort of government monopoly that we see in the CBC.
Actually, lastly but not least, we have an important question. What do you think MP, or why MP Erin O'Toole think that he is the best candidate in the leadership race of the Conservative Party?
Well, of this race, there are only two candidates that are current members of Parliament, myself and Mr. Sloan. The other two candidates are good candidates, but they're not in the House of Commons. They won't be able to hold Trudeau to account in September or for the next year almost. If we don't have a leader in the House of Commons in a minority parliament after a pandemic with all these scandals, we will lose the next election. So I'm the only one in this race that can be ready on day one. I've also got more experience than everyone else in this race. I was in the military for 12 years, in the private sector. I was in Stephen Harper's cabinet. I turned around a very difficult portfolio. I'm bilingual. I speak both official languages. And I'm ready to go, and I win in Southern Ontario. And here's what's interesting. I would be the first leader from Ontario since 1948. And I think because we have to win so many seats in Southern Ontario, that will help us win the next election. And I think I bring all these skills to the job.
Mr. O'Toole, thank you very much for this interview. Before I end it, and actually I enjoyed every answer from yourself, do you want to have any ending quote for my audience?
Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And I do think many of the issues we've talked about, whether it's principled foreign policy, standing up for religious freedom, minority religions in parts of the world, including the Middle East, I'm going to bring back the ambassador for religious freedom. Jason Kenney is endorsing me in this race because he knows my principled approach on religious freedom, conscience protections, welcoming new Canadians into the conservative movement. All of these things are important to me. So thank you for allowing me to speak to your listeners, and hope I can earn their support in this conservative race, but also in the general election that may come in the next 6 months.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much, Mr. O'Toole, with a very strong CV and a very strong experience, and also you declared in your answers many of the strategies that might lead Canada to be better again. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.